Hi, welcome to another edition of Wellness Watch. I'm Judy McEwen, and my cohort here is Patty Friedman. You know that by now if you've been watching. We have terrific guests here today from a facility north of here in Pike, which is called the Mountain Valley Treatment Center. And you, Don Vardell,
Right, Don Vardell, yeah.
is the executive director, and Carl Lovejoy is the associate executive director.
Correct.
And co-founder.
Correct.
And they've got a wonderful story. We've had other directors on, and we found out so much about a place that isn't out. You don't know about it unless you need it, essentially. But it's a wonderful thing. Patty and I have talked more than once about stress under our health wellness umbrella. And there's a whole different kind of stress at different ages, which you guys do, which is young children, really, but 13 to 20.
Correct.
And people don't realize just how anxious and how, but it, as you said, it's debilitating. And that matters when you hear that word. A lot of people don't freeze when this happens, but get through it. So, and the first thing I'd love to know from you guys, Mountain Valley Treatment Center, what are your goals? What do you actually go for as a result?
Well, obviously we want to be on the cutting edge of treatment for anxiety and OCD, so we're constantly embarking and engaging in professional development. So we want to make sure that we are always on the forefront of what's going on. There's a lot of research going on out there. We want to make it the best place to work in this, not only Pike, but also in this world of anxiety treatment. So we're continually supporting our staff to have the best possible staff. And then if we can make an impact in this epidemic of anxiety and OCD, then that's what we go to work every day. We all know people with anxiety and maybe OCD, and it's very treatable. It's probably the most treatable mental health illness out there. So we feel, I know it's a privilege for me, and I'm sure Carl would say this too, that we really value our job and can see the rewards.
And that shows.
Judy, I would also add that one of our goals is to really stay true to our mission.
Yes.
And we are working with a very select group, I usually say a narrow bandwidth of kids. Again, ages 13 to 20. There are some wonderful programs out there for kids suffering from addiction issues, other behavioral issues, exactly. We're not one of them. We're working with, again, this very narrow bandwidth of kids who are suffering from this debilitating challenge that is anxiety for them.
How do you find the kids? How do you locate and figure out where they're going to come from for you?
Yeah, I think a little bit of the history of the school and the makeup. And that kind of stuff
I can give you a little bit of the history. We, a founding team, we were brought together in the spring of 2011. And it was clear that there was a need for something like Mountain Valley. We were blessed with an unbelievably gorgeous piece of property in Pike, which we share. We have a shared use agreement with an entity called the Upper Valley Stewardship Center. So we are given this unbelievable piece of land on which we can do our work. And we sat at the whiteboard for many a week trying to figure out.
I thought it was a napkin.
Someday.
Probably that too.
During the day it was during the day whiteboard, at night a napkin.
Napkin when you're alone.
And my aha moment, and Judy, as you probably remember well, I don't come from the therapeutic world. I was brought in from the traditional school world to add my experience to the residential piece, to the academic piece, and we can talk more about that, and also the outreach piece. So for me, during the period of development, to take to the road was really important. And so I went off and I visited other programs that were working with anxious kids, anxious adolescents. And Judy and Patty, everywhere I went, they were hospital-based.
Wow.
And so I came back knowing the population, having worked at independent schools where kids were stressed, where
Yes.
there was a lot of pressure placed upon them from their anxious parents. And I came back to the table and I said, we can do this. We can do the clinical, evidence-based work that is happening at these hospitals, but we can do it in Pike, New Hampshire.
Amen.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And
Carl-
how, it is a setting that anyone would choose to be on, to be treated for anything.
It's a
gorgeous.
beautiful setting. It's, you know, we're at the intersection of the White Mountains region with the Connecticut River Valley region and the Lakes region of New Hampshire. So it doesn't get really any better than that.
You're right.
And it's a great environment for healing. And it's also a big change for most of our kids. Our kids come from all over the country and all over the world. We serve international kids
Oh,
fairly
that's good to know.
regularly.
That's great to know.
Because we are so unique. But a kid from Manhattan has grown up his or her whole life taking an Uber or taxi to school, whatever it is, and they come to Pike, New Hampshire. It can be a shock, but it can also be a time where that hustle and bustle is not around to interfere.
Well, as
with
an
us.
adult would kind of, when you go to the ocean or a grassy place that you love, you just let down. There's something
Right.
that
It's quiet.
feels quiet,
Yeah.
Use
serene.
that time.
And our parents, and oftentimes their children, will feel that as they walk through the front door, particularly those kids who have, and their parents who have seen the serious side of mental health.
Sure.
Yeah.
Perhaps they have been hospitalized for an assessment for a short period
Yeah.
of time. And particularly if you are 18, 19, and 20 years old, and you're defined as an adult, that again can be somewhat scary. So to come to Pike, New Hampshire, to walk through our front door, to see other kids
Yeah.
like them, kids who are experiencing the same challenges.
Sure.
They're still anxious, obviously.
Of
That's
course.
why they're
That's something
there.
new.
But there is this level of comfort that comes.
Plus, they're out of their homes where a lot of the stress originated.
Exactly.
And suddenly among people that share their issues.
Yeah.
Right.
I can imagine, not instantaneously, but
Yeah.
what that atmosphere must do
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about mental illness, and there's always this stigma that
Yeah.
comes with
Yeah.
mental illness.
Yes.
And for kids, that's just so devastating
Yeah.
to be labeled
Yes.
or.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Well,
Because we want to
right.
help kids feel good and feel positive about
Right.
themselves. so-
Right, it is. It's a different quote unquote it's a different mental illness
Sure.
than, let's say, schizophrenia or
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so
even,
many different types.
even substance abuse. So it's more anxiety and OCD. It's behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
it's inside. It's an internalizing mood disorder versus a behavioral kid who's bouncing off the walls or something
right.
like that. So
Right.
so there's that, and so when you don't have debilitating anxiety, each of us have anxiety right now. Each of us have an
Sure.
intrusive thought, but it doesn't stay with us.
Right.
But if you cannot get rid of that, and someone who doesn't have that anxiety is looking at you saying, well, why can't you go to school, or
Yeah.
why can't you go to work, or why can't you do this, take a shower, whatever it is. It doesn't make sense to us because we don't understand it. So the stigma comes in the form of the judgment of what's wrong with you because
yeah.
you can't get up. Is there something wrong with you? Or are you just
Yeah.
lazy? Or
Yeah.
you get that from your mother's side. whatever it might be.
But it's invisible.
It is, it's invisible in terms of what's going on
Right.
in someone's head or in their body, but the physical of not going anywhere,
Right.
the staying at home, not being able to take a shower, the rituals that some kids and young adults have in order for them to go to school.
And then the parents are stressed because they don't know what to do.
Well, they have to get to work.
Yeah.
A
Right.
kid who can't get out of bed,
Right.
or maybe we've got a kid who, the poor thing, he has to get up 2 hours before school to complete his rituals of 13 of this and 13 of that. Well, if the alarm doesn't go off, or mom doesn't get up in time to wake him up, the whole morning's shot.
no.
Totally.
And if the ritual gets interrupted, it's got to start over. So, if you're a parent, you've got to get to work. You've got other kids that need to get to
Right.
the bus, or whatever. So the stress in the family can be.
Oh, I can't imagine.
So it's not really it's not really blaming the parents.
Right.
Like they're not even
No.
blaming, like they're letting the
Yeah.
kids smoke pot or something in the house. I mean, they're trying to get to work, and as a result, they aren't really attacking the OCD or the anxiety. Wow. So it builds, and then that's where we come in.
Wow. Do you do you travel a lot to recruit, or do you have other people do that? Are you?
No, it's Carl and I are the
Yeah.
key
Road
travel
warriors.
road warriors. We have a lot of holiday endpoints, I think.
Yeah, we probably do.
But it's really our motivation for getting out there because we want to help more kids and families. We're a very mission-oriented
Yeah.
organization and not-for-profit. So if we can do well in a business perspective and keep up with quality of care
Yep.
trends and continuously improve, then we can help more kids and families. So really, as a 5-plus-year-old organization, our work is just to get out and make people aware of us because there's so many. There isn't a trip that goes by where somebody says, "I wish I would have known about you X, Y, and Z." I just sent a kid to, like Carl said, a hospital-based
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
So that's the upside of us going out.
Yeah, and so Judy, to the road we go.
Yeah.
And I will visit schools. I'll visit independent schools. I'll visit public schools. I'll meet with deans of students. I will meet with a director of counseling. We will meet with educational consultants, those professionals who are being hired by families to help them
Right.
with the journey.
Right.
Not just the school process, but at times the therapeutic process. We will visit with clinical professionals.
Yeah.
We're seeing physicians, we're seeing social workers.
Wow.
We're seeing anybody who might be a part of the village that does surround
Yes.
some of these kids.
Wow. And I have to disclose that my husband was involved with this family of services for years, and I can just tell you what it's like to be among them
Yeah.
and watching also the good work as it happens. It's just it's an incredible place.
So I'm going to jump on that.
Please.
So we say it's an incredible place, but I think for the audience, there, in my mind, you envision when you say school or whatever, it's
Yeah.
brick and
Yeah.
mortar, and we talked earlier about there's so many other opportunities. So I think it would be good for the audience to get an idea of kind of like what's a school look like, and
Yeah.
it numbers, it's
Sure.
all, you
Yeah.
know what I mean, all that piece
A
of it.
picture. Draw a picture.
Yeah, draw a picture for us.
Well, we are on as Carl mentioned, we're part of another not-for-profit that has resources within the Upper Valley called the Upper Valley Stewardship Center, and we are located on 1,800 plus acres of conservation land. So we have access to the trails and the other things that are going on. And also this organization is focused on outdoor education. So there's a state-of-the-art ropes course and mountain
is it
bikes
ever?
that we have access to and skis. So we're fortunate in that regard. So just picture an iconic New England
Yeah.
former dairy farm. So my office is actually in a building called the Creamery because it
And
was a
I'm
creamery.
in the farmhouse.
Which was
And
a
they're all
farmhouse.
labeled. You drive in the
I
area
need
and you
to
see
go
all
on
those.
a road trip.
You
to
must.
visit.
You must.
Yeah,
We're
we'll
going
go
on.
on a road trip.
Can we come visit you someday?
Absolutely, you're welcome
I'm
anytime.
serious. I would
And
love-
our boys'
I-
dormitory is another type of family
Yeah.
farmhouse that's been, of course, remodeled and updated with sprinkler systems and all
They
that.
have some amazing buildings up
We
there.
do.
I
We're
do.
very
I love them.
And our girls' dormitory, which is really nice, is an old Victorian mansion that was a bed and breakfast prior to us acquiring it. So the girls love it because 2 girls in a room, they have their own bathroom.
So
It's
you
very
take away
nice.
this whole institutional thing right away.
Absolutely.
Which has to be a
immediately.
level
We do.
you can lower
No
to.
white coats, as I say.
Right.
Locked doors.
Probably
No
too
locked
often.
doors, yeah.
We don't
There's
look
freedom.
like a hospital. We don't smell like a hospital. We don't feel like
Yeah.
a
The
hospital.
facilities up there and the whole family have always been very, very creative and pleasant.
Yes. Yeah.
And the whole hospital approach, we could go on for hours, even just that impact that has on not only kids, but even adults when you
Yeah,
go into a setting like that. So I think that is just
Yeah.
so ideal for that type of setting to help kids
Right.
be successful,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and it's really
We'll
huge.
take a road trip. I want you to see
Absolutely.
it.
You must.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Patty, I'd like to perhaps finish answering your question. We're small. We will have 18 to 24 kids at any one time. It's co-ed,
Yeah.
so
That's great.
adolescent boys and girls, ages 13 to 20. And the kids are with us typically 60 to 90 days. And I think we did a board report recently.
We did.
It was about
To Jim.
To Jim, with Jim.
With Jim.
And 83 days is about the average
Yeah,
Yeah.
time
it,
right
it
now.
fluctuates
Yeah.
somewhat
That's the average.
seasonally,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
there's
And
nothing
you-
magical about 90 days. All the kids have an individualized treatment plan.
But that's the maximum.
But the
pretty
machine
much.
that we operate on and the amount of clinical interaction combined with all the programming, the fun stuff, it just takes
And
around.
tell us again the staffing, because I think the ratio makes such a difference. You have to have it small.
We have a grouping, we have different groups of staff. We have our clinical staff, which are master's and doctorate level therapists. We have our residential team, which are all bachelor's level, and typically they've graduated with a degree in something related to one of the elements of what we do,
Right.
health and wellness or outdoor recreation, psychology, and those folks are young and they're taking some time off before they go to grad school. And then we have the administration and, of course, the support staff like the chef and maintenance team. And it's about 30 folks all together. We have overnight awake staff, so we've got each dorm has someone who's awake all night long checking on the kids and doing some paperwork and things like that. So it's a nice, and it's just a great team. Like I mentioned earlier, we spend
Yeah.
a lot of time developing. We have our own in-house training curriculum for staff to go through. Of course, we do all the background checks and,
Sure.
Yeah.
and supervision and things like that. But
Critical.
It's a great team of people.
And I bet the relationships that are made, not only amongst the staff, but to the kids and
Yeah.
the staff, I can only imagine the bonds that
Yeah.
they have
They
and
must, yeah,
stories
they would
about.
leave there with some special,
Yeah.
someone who said,
Connections.
just made the difference and turned me around. And
Yeah.
not that everyone wasn't,
Yeah.
but that's the kind of school where you do take a memory away
Yeah.
of.
Well, and the evidence is the reunion. And
Yeah.
in fact, the
Yeah,
kid-
talk
Carl
about
and,
that.
Carl and I
Yeah.
are traveling. We have lunch with an alumni kid and family. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a special.
Yeah,
event.
it really is. And
And-
I'm fortunate. One of the hats I wear allows me to do some of the outreach, much of the outreach. And for me to be able to come back with stories from the road, to be able to share them
Right.
with the therapists.
Okay, so share a story.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
You probably have so
It
many.
should be
Pick a
easy,
good
right?
one, right?
Well, the kids,
Yeah,
Carl,
so many.
Carl's-
Where do we
No
begin?
pressure, Carl.
Yeah, yeah,
Carl's
yeah.
really good at keeping in touch with kids, and when we got an email from a young lady who came to us from Hawaii in February, felt so bad for her, never
Oh
seen
my
snow
God.
before.
Yeah, right.
You have a parka,
Right.
ready for her?
She was debilitated with her perfectionism. So she stayed up until 3 in the morning studying for her math test. Couldn't turn in her work, go to school, fall asleep, then have a panic attack because she thought So she was really in a bad state.
Right.
Came all the way from Hawaii to Mountain Valley in February. Carl got an email from her the other day. She's been accepted at Texas Christian University.
Aw,
She's a
TCU.
really sweet kid.
Wow.
She keeps in touch with us. We help her with her projects. At school, she'll do a video or something.
That's what matters. If they,
Oh, it does.
if
So
they
rewarding.
leave
Yeah.
very well connected
Yeah.
in most cases.
Yeah. And this is the time of year where we're getting all of the emails about graduations and and these are kids, Patty, to get back to one of your questions.
I know, right?
These are kids who have been school avoidant and social avoidant.
Yeah.
These are kids who, and Dawn mentioned, we all have a level of anxiety. Judy, you invited me to come on this
And you freaked
program
out.
today. and I said, oh my goodness, I've never been on television
Yeah,
before.
you first said, "Oh, just take Dawn."
He totally threw you in.
I
And I said, "No, no, no, not so fast."
I probably did. But then I said to myself, don't be silly. You can do this.
Yeah.
Our kids don't have the ability to do that.
Right.
So they become paralyzed. They become totally stuck.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to school, or they go to school until after second period, and then they wind up in the nurse's office,
Yeah.
and then they go home again. So they're not able to go to school. They're not able to do the things that they love, and our kids are so talented. So they're not able to sing in the select chorus. They're not able to play on the All-Star Youth
Yeah.
hockey team. They're not able to do any of those things anymore because they're stuck.
Yeah. And that's a good word, really. When you say
Stuck.
paralyzed, I think
Stuck
about
and paralyzed, yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot make a move.
Yeah, they cannot. So for them to be able to now obviously go to school and then to graduate and celebrate. Got a wonderful email Sunday morning, a text with photographs of a young boy who graduated from an independent school in Connecticut, was the valedictorian, gave
Amazing.
2 speeches over the course of the graduation. Just amazing.
He wouldn't get out of the car when
No,
his parents brought him.
no.
See, and that's the
It's
thing,
so
it's
severe.
confidence. I mean, it's getting that
Yeah.
confidence
Yeah.
to feel like you have self-esteem, and that, to me, from working with clients, it's about having a support system
Right.
that believes in you,
Right.
and really making a
Right.
difference in someone's life. And there's so much clinical and therapy and everything that goes with it, but it's in a setting that doesn't feel so, as Judy said, judgmental, but
Yeah.
institutionalized.
Right.
It's something that people can relate to and feel good about.
It's almost like just going to live with a bunch of kids, looking out at grass and things that are calming
Yeah,
Right.
in most
we're
ways.
unplugged, so we're an unplugged
Yeah.
So no
program.
Wi-Fi,
No electronics,
no
unless
electronics.
it's relative to their clinical work, so
See,
they might have
that's-
to look up spiders or
Right
pictures
there
of
is a
spiders or something
big
like
deal.
Yeah,
But
that's
we're
huge.
unplugged, and the support system you mentioned, the importance of the parents in that.
Yeah.
Parents have to be the partner. They have to know how to react, because you're gonna have bumps. Kids are gonna have bumps. They're gonna
Sure.
maybe an old pattern, is
Right.
gonna come into play. So, but they need to know they can rely on mom or dad to say the right thing to me, or to not reassure me, which is the
Right.
number one worst thing you can do for a kid who's having anxieties. You'll be okay, honey.
Right.
It's
Yeah, it's a
okay.
work.
You can. It's more. You know this. You know the tools. You know what to do. Let's do it, and then reward, and then recognize the progress, so that everybody knows that language.
Yeah.
Then they can depend on each other.
Exactly.
And our parents come to us not understanding that. They don't understand what's going on in the body with anxiety. They don't understand how they're inadvertently contributing to it getting worse or not getting better. So the kid who calls or texts mom or dad after second period saying, I've got a stomach ache, I think I'm going to throw up, I think this, or has a social phobia and they don't want to go to the lunchroom.
Right.
And the mom comes into the parking lot and has the lunch in the car, and Susie comes out. She's trying
Enabling
to do. She doesn't. She's enabling, but she also cares about her daughter.
She's trying
not-
to help.
Right.
She's trying to help, but it's not,
Not
helping the
helping.
situation. So, so a lot of education back and forth, and then a lot of teaching the parents how to be that partner with their kid.
Yeah. And when you mentioned grandparents, as I was sitting at Landmark a week ago,
Yeah.
I met several grandparents that had helped put them through that, because
Yeah.
it's not cheap. And the grandparents were there taking as many pictures as any, and just, that's my granddaughter
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
She couldn't talk when she
Yeah.
came here.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that makes you say, we really are helping.
Well, grandparents are so intertwined and connected with their grandkids.
Yes.
At least our kind of kids. So
Yeah.
they are also have to be part of that support system.
Right.
So
They
they
sure
get
do.
the family education, and they'll
And
come
we
to
talk
graduation.
support all the time. Every show
Right.
we've ever had,
Yeah.
whether it's
Great.
quitting something or,
Yeah.
we say, if without some support, you fail.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big crew, it just has to be
Yeah.
at least one person that's
Right.
looking out for you.
Exactly.
And you have to figure that support out.
Yes.
I mean, of how you want to get support. Because
Right.
some people they want the whole world
Sure.
around them,
Right.
and other people are more individual or
Exactly
a
right.
smaller.
But not depending, not leaning on it, or I mean,
Right.
you got, Carl, we were mentioning how when we got the email about coming on the show, and Carl, so we did
Oh,
some,
man,
we did
how's your
some
heart
yoga
rate right
in the
now?
lobby
We did.
before we
Are you-
came
are you
in.
doing okay?
Periods of
Are
mindfulness.
you okay now?
Breathing.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
Get some
Deep
deep breathing.
breathing.
And those are supports that we also teach our kids. We teach
Sure.
them how to meditate. We do a lot of movement therapy, such as yoga and some other
Wonderful.
things that help them get in touch with their body and help calm whatever's going on, so they can go into that zone. So a kid who gets up in the morning and starting to feel, okay, my stomach's hurting, I don't know why I'm worried, it's just generalized anxiety, but I know how to get down on the floor and do a few yoga poses,
Perfect.
get myself together, then I can come downstairs and there's not the drama around
That's great.
breakfast and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you
And
teach
that-
mindfulness?
We
as a-
Absolutely.
We do.
Good.
We do. And all of this, ladies, is incredibly important because there's no cure for anxiety. You know, the anxious
important, yeah.
adolescent is going to be an anxious adult.
Yes.
And so we need to make sure that they learn the tools at Mountain Valley.
Totally.
So that they can go off and they can relive their normal lives.
Yeah. And knowing when you slip, that's a
Yeah.
big key.
Yeah.
It's okay to slip,
It is.
but given the tools of
part of the
mindfulness
process,
and
Yeah,
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah.
because no one's perfect. We
No,
all,
absolutely not.
we can learn from our mistakes. That's the biggest thing, and when people are such perfectionists
Yeah.
or OCD is helping them realize it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's giving them that permission.
Mm-hmm.
I think
realize.
permission is key. I think
Yeah.
it's a great word
It
to
is.
bring up because
And Patty,
okay.
thank you for bringing up the perfectionist piece, because that's something that almost to a person our kids are experiencing.
wow.
You know, and they come to us, and when you visit, you
Right,
are
right,
going
right,
to
right.
We're going-
you
we're
are
gonna-
going to
we're
be
gonna get a
so
tour.
instantly.
We're gonna
you're
get a
gonna be
tour and
impressed
everything.
with our kids.
Yeah.
But so many of our kids arrive not feeling good about themselves. You know, I'm not bright enough.
Right.
I'm not attractive enough. I don't wear the right clothes. And that is very, very difficult for a 15-year-old trying to navigate this world right now. And one of the
hard.
beauties of being unplugged for 60 to 90 days is to throw away that cell phone,
Yeah.
which is
Don't look at your Facebook page.
oh
or-
my
Right.
goodness, how many
Instagram or
how many
something.
likes
How many
have I
likes?
received?
Yeah.
you
Right,
know?
because then they start comparing themselves to other
And
people.
that just brings the level back
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So that's
And you know, many of our kids have been, because they're such sweet, benign kids, perhaps they've been bullied somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
And the cyberbullying is very easy to do. It's very
brutal.
powerful. It's incredibly destructive to
It's
these
so
kids.
destructive.
Yeah.
I can
And
only imagine what kids I don't even know feel when certain things happen on there, and it just
And I love, you know, when Carl and I are on campus, which I'd say is most of the time. I mean, we are involved in, because it's a small, intimate program. So the therapist will ask us to get involved in some
good.
of the work that the kids are doing. So the perfectionist kids will have to knock on an unscheduled, knock on my door, show me something, a writing assignment. Writing is a big common thread with our kids. Just they just can't put the thought on paper because they're afraid it's going to not get an A, it's not going to be
judging
judged.
again,
right.
judgmentalism.
So they
is-
will purposely put something together with misspellings and, you know, doesn't make sense, it's a stupid story kind of thing. And they have to read it to me. And, you know, we would probably think, oh, it's just a funny game I'm playing. But for a
Right.
kid
Yeah.
with that serious perfectionism, it's really hard for them to do. So that's a big deal when they can come to the executive director, the associate executive director, and read something that they've done wrong, or give a presentation and, you know, misspellings on the PowerPoint, and
Sure.
then have the other kids at the end give them feedback and
Yeah.
point out things like that.
How do they take it from their peers? Are they good about that?
Oh yeah, because they know
Most
what
of
they're
them?
doing. It's
Yeah.
part of the process, and you know, they know what's going on. They know this is an exercise, but still generates that anxiety. Their level of anxiety will rise, and hopefully over the course of the treatment with us, they can do a presentation like that. They can confront a spider or stand by the road by themselves, and they don't get kidnapped. And instead of their anxiety taking 20 minutes to go from a 10 to a 5, it will take 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So then we know, okay, they're
Yeah.
on the right path. And then they can work with their therapist and say, I'm going to put myself in a situation. I'm going to get creative, and I'm going to go walk the trail by myself. And maybe a bear will get me, maybe one won't, but I'm going to do it.
And that's how we do it anyway. I
Right.
mean, everyone has that risk.
go to Hanover. There's still one bear loose.
But how-
I probably
yeah, I
should-
know, I
I
saw
shouldn't have
that.
brought that up.
I
I
feel so
walked that
bad for
trail
the-
Right,
just
the
before I
bears.
found them.
The bears loose.
But how gratifying! What the feeling I'm getting from both of you, who are totally engaged and totally in the is this gratitude you feel because you're hearing it from them, you're seeing it with your own eyes, you're seeing the family connections work better. All of that must just make you feel, boy, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, and well, yes, Judy, and thank you. But it goes back to, I think, one of my earlier comments in that anxiety is highly treatable.
Yeah,
So we're very fortunate at
Yeah.
Mountain Valley to see the growth of these kids
Yeah.
from day 1 to day 90.
and you must have a great staff that obviously you choose carefully because they're the ones that are going to help this process move forward.
Yeah.
I had a question for you. When I was talking about some of these programs being so expensive, do you have any scholarship programs or
Yeah,
any
we
ways
do.
kids can
We
manage it
do.
more
And
easily?
I think we all embrace the not-for-profit spirit.
Totally, yeah.
And I've taken pages, if you will, from my old admissions book, and we offer need-based financial assistance to
Wonderful.
our families. So families fill out school scholarship forms or FAFSA forms.
Yep.
They send us their 1040s.
Yeah.
We have a financial aid committee, and
Wonderful.
we're offering financial aid.
Is there a
programs.
percentage you can give me, or roughly?
So the average family receives 25% off of the cost.
Wonderful.
The other thing that we've gotten better, I mentioned to you on the way in that we're over 5 years old now, so we're out of our training pants, if you will.
Big boy pants
We
now.
are. We're not
Yes,
big boys. We get a seat at
Next
the adult
step.
table. So
Yeah.
we've done a really nice job, I think, of being able to help families access whatever insurance benefits they have.
Yeah.
It's a specialized skill how to navigate the process of. So
Oh, I
we've
bet.
contracted with a company where that's their
that's great.
that's their thing that they do. So they will fight on behalf. They'll verify benefits. They're linked up to our clinical team so they can get weekly notes, and then they can do the reviews with the insurance provider and handle that whole process on behalf of the parents. So they will
Wow.
access that they have a residential benefit.
That kind of advocacy can make a difference.
Well, it's the average
Whether-
family that uses insurance gets 45 days, some reimbursed out of
That's
the
amazing.
70 or 80. Some get the whole thing.
Wow.
It's the planets align the right way, and you get the right person on the phone, and magical things can
Sure.
happen. But at least we're able to help families with that potential. So
Yeah.
Because you hate to think of having found someone who's
Right.
deeply needy,
Correct.
and then you lose them because of that.
Yeah. Dawn and I want to make sure that we can work with that family.
Yeah,
So we're doing as much as we can.
boy.
You know, one of the beauties of being a 501c3 is that we can accept charitable deductions.
Oh,
So
that makes
we've
sense.
had a number of families go out the door, happy families go out the door with their graduating child, turn to us and say, the next family that cannot afford this,
Yeah.
you let us know.
Isn't
it
that
back.
paying it forward? I love it.
It speaks volumes about the
Yeah.
work being
Well, it tells you, I mean, they see their child. I was telling you about a child that
right.
had to go away to school just for all the right reasons.
Yes.
And the caring that came out of being in a really small but transparent fishbowl,
Correct.
that size matters sometimes. It's the only way some kids are helped by having
Well-
not this enormous number of people and they hardly get to know.
Right, you don't want them to get lost.
Right.
And Carl's done a really nice job of connecting and staying in touch. We talked about the alumni or the reunion, but Carl's done a nice job of building an endowment type of setup from the private school days. And
Wonderful.
parents, I mean, the parents for the most part that we serve have resources, and they are more than willing to support someone else. So
I love it.
we're doing a nice job.
Yeah.
That's great.
Fantastic.
I have to ask, one thing that came up earlier, not to
Please.
lose sight of that, is we talked about unplugging and getting away from social media. One of the things that I am curious if you found with the kids, they don't know how to communicate verbally. And I think it's really important that people realize just what technology has done in the way kids communicate
Yeah.
and how to have a conversation and
Yes.
eye contact and
Yes.
just respect. And I'm just curious what your
Yeah.
That's actually one of the more common. The clinical work that we do is called exposure and response prevention therapy. So you expose yourself to the feared stimulus or situation, you get a response, but you prevent the response from being a 10 over time, over gradual exposure to it. So one of the classic exposures, and this is one I love to get involved with. I know I keep hitting my microphone.
Do not do that again,
I won't
please.
do it again. So, is we have the social interaction. We have to, you sit down and have a conversation about nothing actually.
Right.
The resident is what we call them. Will have to come over to my office and say, I'm going to have a conversation. They have to pick about whatever they
Whatever
have
it
to
is.
come up with it, which is anxiety provoking.
Even there, yeah.
And then they have to practice making eye contact. And then I get to give them feedback on how many times they didn't have eye contact, and
It's
Yeah.
critical.
whether they
So
look like they
important.
cared about what I was saying.
Yeah.
But-
And I like to joke that every day at Mountain Valley is Throwback Thursday because they are unplugged.
Yeah.
And so they're having conversations with one another,
Yeah.
which for an anxious kid to sit in a room full of their peers, to not have a device in hand, is anxiety provoking for them.
It's so awkward
question.
for them. They
It
don't
is
know what to do.
But the
incredibly
whole,
awkward,
this
Patty.
whole generation is having trouble with that. They don't have the dinners together they used to have. They're allowed to take these.
We
all these-
do.
all-
So
we-
you
yeah.
have dinner time.
We
I mean,
do.
they all eat
All
together.
together.
And that's
lunch
awesome.
and dinner, they're all together
Yeah.
and they're with adults.
So important.
Yeah.
Because the other kids are taking all their electronics into their bedroom and
Yes.
Right.
all night long, and
Yeah.
they don't do this. And so they can't resolve
Yeah.
problems either.
Well, and they're we mentioned sort of the inadvertent reinforcement of your anxiety and OCD, and they're inadvertently reinforcing their whatever it is by
Yeah.
being on social media. We talked about where's all this anxiety coming from, and
Right.
the post 9/11 generation of parents and kids, combined with the media, combined with you probably remember when they started putting faces of lost or missing children
Yes.
on milk cartons, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're the parents or whatever of these kind of kids, and all that bubbled together, and they, I'll probably get a text or a tweet about something horrible that happened somewhere in the world, and you're an anxious kid, and you see the news report, the school shooting or something. So they have to separate themselves from that so they can focus on themselves, and they can sit around the lunch table, the dinner table at Mountain Valley, and actually talk to other kids
Yeah.
about kid stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Carl and I love to just sit down and listen to the silly kid things that they talk about. It's just so much fun, versus they're over there on their device or something.
But and they're laughing.
Yes.
Is
They're
it that good
smiling,
that
they
they
look
end up
healthy.
laughing and happy? And
Yeah.
We focus on not only the clinical work, but we try to teach our kids about food and mood,
good.
and we practice that. We do a lot of organic. We grow our own vegetables. We raise our own meat.
This is what's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the kids really,
Homesteading.
just think about it. If you're a kid who's staying up all night, most of our kids come to us with a nocturnal sleep cycle. They're not going to bed
Right.
on time. They're doing on their devices. They're eating crap. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
frankly,
Totally.
The sugar.
And
A lot of
so
Doritos.
a lot of
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of processed
So
food,
unhealthy.
a lot
A
of
lot of
sugar.
chemicals.
So we're not doing that, and they come to us. They get on a normal sleep schedule. They're getting outside. They're getting exercise, and they're eating.
So,
Which one first?
All right, you go first.
no, I just,
I don't
how
know
do
about
you, how do you transmit that and make them go home with that?
That's
and
my
educate
question.
the parents
that.
about
Yes,
it?
that's exactly what I was going to say.
we can't guarantee what
You can't
happens
force
afterwards.
it.
But the funny thing is, our families are very educated, and they're on the same page as us. They just can't get their child to eat
Child,
right. So,
right.
so we, they have their role in not providing access to all the things. You can still have. There's nothing wrong with
A few
like we were
potato chips
talking
here and
about,
there.
moderation, whatever. But
Right.
but the kids are the ones who. I mean, it's actually funny. We have our program is divided into modules. So we have the farm to table module and the yoga module and the fitness module.
Yep.
We have one called health and wellness. So the kids are going through a curriculum of the 7 dimensions of wellness, and the nutrition. It's really funny when they come back from the nutrition and then they come to lunch and they challenge the chef on how much sugar might be and whatever.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that great?
So do you
Tail
think
wags
they
the dog, I
do
think.
stay with it, or do you think the parents, do you send them
Oh,
home
I'm
any kind of things
convinced.
with the
I'm
parents?
convinced that some of the kids stay with it.
I would
Oh,
think
yeah.
you
Yeah.
Yes,
to be.
yeah. Remember, we're dealing with really bright,
Smart.
high-functioning
That's right.
kids.
That's right.
They get it, so they totally understand.
So
Yeah.
they can kind of insist or at least request.
They become
that,
role
"Hey,
models.
Mom, guess what?
They become role
I'm gonna go
models at
shopping with
home."
you."
Yeah, yeah.
But
I actually
you're
like
right, they're bright
spinach
kids.
or something.
Yeah, you're right. That
Yeah.
green stuff is
Yeah,
good
that's
for
right.
me.
Oh, I love it. Like we have a young man. He's actually 18. first couple of days there, he said, Don, I only eat chicken fingers, pizza, and hamburgers. I said, well, you're not going to eat much here, then. It's going to be tough for
You're a very,
you.
very hungry boy.
So yeah, he's been here, a while, and yesterday he was having a bowl of some kind of soup that our chef had made, organic vegetables, and I just thought, yeah, remember those days when you only ate chicken fingers? Anyway, it's
It's
funny.
great. It just educates in so many ways. I mean, forget that just the eating is so huge.
You know, it comes back around to, and this may sound so cliche, but it's almost old school.
It is.
It's bringing it back to what, I mean, at least in our generation, because I think we're all kind of in the same generation, of what
I'm
we
a little
did.
ahead of all of you.
We'll include you. And it's about playing, it's about recreating, it's about
Yeah.
just letting
Go
It's
yourself,
out
about
on the
having some
farm and
downtime.
Go out and
frankly.
run around
I mean,
in that
think
beautiful-
about
not
it.
everything is
Yeah.
scheduled.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
You're just totally being a
simplified.
person.
It is. It is.
It's a life I would love. I mean, that's how my childhood was. It was just go outside, find someone to play with, and that's all we did. We run outside and pick up games all the time. We
Do
were
they play
allowed
kick
in the
the
house.
can?
Correct.
I don't think we played kick.
No, but we're playing hide and go seek, and
Yeah.
we're on a
Scavenger
rain,
hunt.
Scavenger hunt.
rainy
See?
day we're playing
Freeze tag.
Monopoly, and the kids
That's
play
what-
cards.
Yeah.
And,
See,
And they
no,
may take that home with them
Yeah.
in terms of some games, not just
Yeah.
texting all day.
and remember that those are activities that these kids would not be able to engage in prior to the Mountain Valley experience. They wouldn't be able to play cards. Many of them are hiding behind their screens late at night,
Right.
Yeah.
having relationships with people
Oh.
who knows where.
Frightening. Frightening.
And they're so, that if they're so afraid of judgment or have a social phobia
Sure.
or they have a panic disorder and they don't know when that panic attack's going to come on, they might lose control of their bodily functions. So the embarrassment, they might throw up somewhere. So those kids, they just kind of isolate and they say, I'm not going to, and they'll
Yeah.
stay in their home.
And that's why
So
it
So
works.
we help through our program. We help them realize they can do these activities with other kids, and the world doesn't come crashing down on them. Maybe it will sometime, but
Yeah.
maybe
but
it
then you
won't.
help them figure out how to get through that.
Correct.
Exactly.
That's what it's
And then I
about.
recognize it's coming on, or
Yeah.
the things that trigger it. And
Yeah, and that they're
So
not
they-
failures. That's another thing too.
And they have to learn that the whole world isn't judging them. And that's a big deal,
Yeah.
judging, is everyone feels
Yeah.
like they have to do something for someone
Right.
else and be judged.
Right.
There are a lot of people that do that.
Yeah.
Ladies, I want to add, I don't know how much time
Oh,
we
I'm
have.
waiting, I get a signal when we have to
Okay,
wrap up,
well,
so.
Let us,
I think we're
let us
getting
know when
the,
the
we're getting the
signal.
signal.
He's gonna do it out that
The
way.
signal.
Let us know when the signal comes. But Dawn mentioned exposure and response prevention, which we feel is the gold standard for treating anxiety. So we're doing a lot of that right on campus,
Yep.
which we've talked about.
Yep.
But we need to thank the Upper Valley for allowing us to take our little show on the road, so to speak.
Yeah,
We go to the Walmart up in Woodsville
big you, big one.
with exposure assignments in hand, and making these kids in everyday normal settings do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. Like Dawn will always say, "Where's the giraffe food?" and that fear of judgment.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Giraffe food? Those kinds
Yeah.
of things.
It's
Dawn-
like exposure on other people, like if you're fear of flying kind of thing, you get in a plane.
Exactly.
Slowly, you get in a
I
plane
mean,
that's not taking
It's
off.
very
that's quick.
gradual.
I jumped
You
a few
listen,
steps,
right, but that's right. We don't want to flood.
goal
We don't want
is
to
to
flood.
get
the
She's
you
house.
jumping out of the plane.
You don't want to do that yet.
The goal is to get face your fear,
Yeah.
essentially.
And so we took, Dawn and I and a couple of our therapists took a group of kids to Hanover last week. And these are kids in various stages of their treatment.
Yep.
And again, it's very gradual, but for some of the kids, we're really pushing them.
Yeah.
And I took two kids, one of them carrying a sign that said something about being anxious,
Yeah.
and going up to Dartmouth students on the green, greeting them, introducing them, and talking about their experience
Whoa.
at Mountain Valley and
Interesting.
beyond.
That's enormous.
And the Dartmouth kids are so wonderful. engaging with our kids in conversation. We had one Dartmouth student who was there with her mom come up to us and say, "I know what you're going through. I'm in treatment too." So just these wonderful
Yeah.
experiences.
But
Makes you feel
Hanover
good
is a
about it.
great, I mean,
Oh.
any
Yeah.
town like Hanover,
Yeah.
Plymouth, because we had a kid go into a public restroom and stand there and touch the handle and not wash his hands for a certain period of time while the anxiety went up, and then it came down, then
Yeah.
of course you wash your hands. We have kids go and buy something and then go back and return it a few minutes later. That's really hard for a lot of our
This
kids.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Or go
Exposure.
into a
Something-
restaurant by yourself and sit at the counter at Lou's and order something and eat by yourself, and you're worried someone's looking at you, or you know, what do you? So all those things can really, those are how you can generalize what we're doing in
Right,
Pike
right.
into a real world setting.
Yeah.
See, that's something.
Isn't that something? A couple of years ago, we had a nationally ranked male squash player who was with us during the winter, and unfortunately for him, that was during his season, but he wasn't able to participate because of his anxiety. So he came to Mountain Valley, and late in his treatment, we used to take him to, again, thank you, Dartmouth College.
Yeah.
We used to take him at noontime to the Dartmouth squash courts. We would let him out of the car. He would have to navigate the scene. So many of the Dartmouth business people during that time, instead of going to lunch, go to the squash courts
Sure.
and play. So he had to navigate that, arrange matches. He was very good, so everybody wanted to play with him. So, you know, just, it was fun for him.
Yeah.
It was hard for him. It was
Yeah.
powerful for him.
Really, that's
and
a powerful story.
Isn't that a great one?
I'm afraid we have to wrap this up.
Oh.
It's been wonderful. I think anyone out there,
Get the
and
finger wag.
if you want to just give them
Well, I do.
a little bit of contact
I want to make
information.
sure that there are resources out there for folks, and it's, as Carl and I mentioned, it's the most treatable mental health disorder. Over 30% of all teenagers between the ages of 13 and 18 will have some debilitating anxiety disorder. So access to information and treatment is important. So a couple of organizations, the Association, or the American Association of the Association of Anxiety Disorders, American Association of Anxiety Disorders.org. So it would be ADAA.org, has a great amount of resources.
That's helpful.
The International OCD Foundation, which would be IOCDF.org. Again, a ton of great information. And then, of course, you can reach out to Mountain Valley. Whether we think you're
yeah,
appropriate or
and
not, we can help.
We're going to put your information, your
Well, that'd be
contact
great.
information on the
Thank you.
screen so they
Great.
can contact either one of you. I urge them to take this up because I'm looking at this camera knowing there are people out there that are suffering with this, their child or their someone they know. And for this age group, it's a tremendous resource, and you've just really told the story really well. And
Thank you.
we're coming up.
Well, thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
so
so
much
much.
for having
It's
us.
our pleasure.
Great
We really,
information.
this
Great.
is a wonderful spot right in our backyard,
Great.
and take advantage of it, folks. Anyway, these guys were great. I'm so glad you could come,
Thank you.
and we look forward to seeing you next time.